Hi folks. Now, today I wanted to talk to you about a period in Scottish history that had a profound effect not only on Scotland, but on the whole world. This period is called the Scottish Enlightenment, and it really was Scotland's golden era. Personally, I feel it is the most important period in Scotland's long history, and it has defined, I feel, for many people what Scotland and what you might call Scottishness truly means. Now, the Scottish Enlightenment ran for about 100 years, from the mid-1700s to the middle to the end of the 1800s. And during this period, there was an outpouring of intellectual, philosophical and scientific ideas from Scotland that sought to transform every aspect of human knowledge and which resonated around the world. So much so that the Scottish Enlightenment is often referred to as the invention of the modern world. But how did this amazing era come about? How was it that Scotland, a poor, perpetually divided country, marooned on the far edges of Europe, how was it that it came to lead the world and inspire the notions of liberty, democracy, government and industry that the Western world by and large still follows? Well, to gain an understanding of this, we need to go back a bit in time. So we go back to 1496 in the reign of King James IV of Scotland, when an Act of Parliament, the Education Act, was passed that required landowners to send their eldest sons to school to study Latin, the arts and law. For the first time in the world, therefore, a schooling was made compulsory. Now, the intention of this legislation was to improve the administration of local government and the standards of justice by ensuring that those most involved in it, i.e. the landowner's sons, were better educated. And so a system of compulsory education, albeit, yes, limited to a few, started in Scotland. But this was greatly enhanced when, following the Scottish Reformation in the 1500s, in which Scotland became a Protestant nation, education for all was seen as an important reform, not least so that ordinary people, rather than just a priest, could read the Bible. Now, along with this push for education, Scotland's Presbyterian Church of Scotland was a church where the minister was elected by the congregation, by the people themselves, not appointed by a king or a bishop. So they had radical ideas on how a country should be ruled. And two figures loomed very large in this. First, John Knox, a very famous Protestant reformer, Scottish reformer. Now, he believed power was vested not in kings or queens or nobles. No. He believed it was in the people themselves, and he told Mary, Queen of Scots, that. And also George Buchanan, Scotland's leading humanist and a tutor to Mary's son, the future King James VI. He turned this view into a doctrine, the first in Europe. In his book, The Law of Government Among the Scots, published in 1579, he asserted that all political authority belonged to the people. So here we have a formula for democratic government. But this was at a time when the known world was largely ruled by absolute monarchs and despots, with their peoples largely consigned to serfdom or slavery. Now remember, this is 1579, the French Revolution and the establishment of the United States were 200 years in the future. So this drive for better education for all continued in Scotland, and during the course of the 1600s, a number of Acts of Parliament were passed that ordered locally funded, Church of Scotland supervised schools to be established in every parish in Scotland. And because of this, by the late 1600s, there was a large network of parish schools throughout the main population areas of Scotland. And one of the great effects of this extensive network of schools and the education he provided was that it allowed young children, no matter how poor, to rise up through the system regardless of their background. So here was Scotland starting to become Europe's first modern literate society. And by the 1700s, this education had led to an explosion of reading, with ordinary people clamouring for books. Those who could not afford them were helped by the increasing number of lending libraries that were being established in most towns. And on the back of this, book publishing and selling, paper making and printing became huge industries in Scotland. So here we see a modern industry in practice responding to the needs, desires and wants of its customers. Now, those of you who are Outlander fans may have wondered why it was that Jamie Fraser, a Highlander, was able to speak Latin and French, and who subsequently became a printer when he was in Edinburgh. Now you know the answer. Jamie would have been educated at a younger age, and Edinburgh was a renowned centre of printing. But it wasn't just the schools that were the drivers of the amazing changes that were to come. Scotland's universities played a vital role in this. By the 1600s, Scotland had 5 universities compared with England's only 2. And they were offering a lecture-based curriculum that provided a high-quality liberal education. Subjects such as economics, mathematics, science and medicine were offered. And thanks to the general literacy in the population, they became centres of popular education rather than being just the reserve of the elite. So by the time we arrive at 1700, Scotland has a system of education in place that ensured quality teaching and schooling was widely available to most of its population. Today we recognise that literacy and numeracy are the building blocks of any modern society. In 1700, despite its poverty and remoteness from Europe, there was no other country in the world other than Scotland ready to explode into the modern age. Now in part 2 we're going to look at just what it was that ignited the Scottish Enlightenment.